What?
Nothing. I don't know. I don't know what that was that you did. All right. We got Tuesday, February 18th, and we've got a guest on that we've never have had on before. And she's done a handful of podcasts, so you may have seen her on some of those, depending on how well you know her or where you live. But you also may have seen her at some pretty significant competitions over the years. And I would say, with all the different competitions that you've done, possibly, I mean, I didn't get to watch it, but possibly one of the best competition performances that you've ever had a couple of weeks ago in Pamplona, Spain, at least from where I was sitting, trying to follow along, knowing what the events are, knowing the caliber of the field, and talking to a couple of people on site. Noortje Bleeker from the Netherlands. I think she prefers to go by Noor. Is that right?
I mean, it's just a little bit easier, especially like internationally. People tend to butcher my name a little bit. And
Okay.
Noor is a bit more internationally friendly. So usually for simplicity, I just go by Noor.
Well, we try our best to get the names right. It is very challenging. But in case there was someone who actually wanted to try to say your full name the way that you would say it, how would they do that?
Then it says Noortje Bleeker.
Noortje Bleeker. There you go.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess I just want to kind of a quick reaction to that from you, but we'll break it down a little bit later on. But did you leave that weekend feeling like it was one of the better competitions that you'd had in your career?
Yeah, for sure. I think, like, obviously result wise, once you're good on the leaderboard, that definitely leaves you feeling with like a good and happy feeling about the performances of that weekend. But like also from like the context of how the weekend went, how it went for me physically, how I felt like I could execute the workouts, and if we made a lot like mistakes or maybe we weren't prepared or whatever, there weren't too many things or too many big things really going wrong. So both from an execution standpoint and from an outcome standpoint, yeah, it was a pretty good weekend. I am, and my coach as well, Andre, is pretty happy with how this weekend played out. Yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask, because you say we when you talk about the weekend, and so obviously there's the support system there, and Andre Houdet is who you're referring to. Is that who you're thinking of when you speak that way?
Yeah, I like obviously I've worked with a lot of coaches in the past, but like the coach is definitely the first person to sort of on the top of the team list. And especially with having him here during the weekend, coaching me and then also coaching Jelle, that's just like such a good way to, I don't know, you're kind of living the weekend together. You're making sure that the programming or the timing, like when are we going to meet up? What time are we going to do the warm up? What's the warm up look like? He could just be in the warm up, tell me what to do. It's just, it helps with the structure and it helps with like physically having your support system there. It's not necessary, but it's like a very big box that is ticked off if he is there or if a coach is there. So this was also, I think, our first competition together that he was here as a coach. So it's also like it was a bit of figuring out how we work together in weekends like these. But yeah, it was really like smooth and the communication was there, and yeah, it was really nice. It was a good experience.
How well do you know Jelle?
We've gotten to know each other over the years. Like we did some camps together when we were at Andre's, and like he's from Belgium, so it's not like he's super far. So we definitely also had like a lot of competitions together. So yeah, I mean, we know each other pretty well by now, but it was really also really nice to have him there and just share this experience with like the coach athlete and the NST team and being there together and yeah, being the show ponies for the NST brand that weekend. That was good.
Wow. Well, and also, something that you can't necessarily plan for, I would say. But you guys had a kind of a similar competition weekend, you and Jelle. So
Yeah,
it may
very
have
much.
been, from a coach's perspective, sometimes it can be very stressful to sort of divide your time between two athletes. And if one's having a great weekend and one's having a bad weekend, to know where to kind of give that time. And we'll walk through the weekend and the events, but just a little foreshadowing, like the trajectory of the events and the way that the weekend played out was almost eerily similar for the two of you.
Yeah, that was kind of funny because I think on each of the days, like going out for the day, we had the same ranking on the leaderboard. Yeah.
Which it was funny for me to watch. And Patrick and I were kind of joking about it because obviously we knew Andre was there with you. And I've had a good chance to talk to Andre. Actually, one of the best conversations I had with him was at Fall Series Throwdown 2 Decembers ago when he was coaching Tommy Pieri there, and we went out to eat. And it was really insightful to me about his approach to coaching an athlete through the weekend. Like, he does not leave any stones unturned.
Nope.
He's thinking, like you're talking about in the warm-up area and the things, but he's thinking about meals. Like, it sounds like months ahead of time, meal timing, like any information he can get to try to just, seek every opportunity to give you guys, how I would perceive it is, the least amount to think about as possible off the floor so that you can focus as much as possible on what you're doing on the floor.
Yeah, it's really creating like basically one big checklist. And it's a checklist with like the more practical things, like what time do we need to be where? If we have the events beforehand or if we have the briefing beforehand, like what gear do we need to bring? Is there certain questions that we need to ask about certain movements? But then, as you say, it's also about like food timing. If we leave the hotel every morning, we'll always be like, okay, everyone, this is the event that we're going to do now. Do we have our gear? Are we on time? What time do we need to be where? For instance, like I had my caffeine pills that I needed to take at a certain time, like to make sure that we don't forget. We put a timer. So it's like all the little details to make sure that we don't have to go off of memory or that we don't have to go off of luck of remembering things, but like everything is in a schedule and everyone knows, like after the event, you go at that time, you go at that time, we finish at this time, we want to go back to the venue at this time. That means that we have this amount of hours in between. Okay, that means that we're going to leave the hotel. That takes that many minutes to walk. Then we have so many minutes to have like food. Then we have so many minutes to recover and shower and do things. So everything is, and I think that's where him and I also work in like a similar way. We're really practical and really like planning everything out. And we like to do that. We like to work that way. So that was also like a good way to know that we work together really well on communication and planning wise as a coach athlete for these types of weekends. So yeah.
I mean, Andre is a very disciplined person in his life in general, as you articulated there. And I think that word sometimes gets thrown around with regards to athletes without maybe people understanding how committed you have to be to having discipline in so many areas of your life to be able to perform at such a high level against other people who are doing similar things and pursuing similar goals. And it sounds, based on what you just said, like your day-to-day life is kind of like that too.
Yeah. And it's like, we talk about it sometimes. It's like, it's the easy things. Like it's easy, or it's not a difficult thing, for instance, to like prepare your meals. It's not a difficult thing to cook, but it gets difficult to always plan ahead to do your grocery trips, or always know kind of what your week's going to look like, how many meals you're going to need, and how to plan it out. It's not difficult to take your supplements, but building that routine to take your supplements can be hard for some people to kind of get that routine in. And then maybe some people don't like setting reminders. But like, if I know that I need to remember something, I'll set a reminder. It makes for a bit of a mundane life and a bit of a, I don't know, like simulated life sometimes. But as you said, like that's the discipline part of it for the bigger things, like going to do your training. at a certain time that you set for yourself. But it's also the little things with preparing your meals and making sure that you take your supplements and drinking enough water, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, he is that type of person. And always when we have like events, like for instance, now the PICSIL Showdown coming up, like he'll always prepare like this big ass document with all the event strategies laid out, all the warming ups laid out. Especially like now that both Jelle and I were there, Jelle is gonna most likely have a little bit different strategies from what I'm gonna have. Both of them are laid out separately, or we can discuss separately, like, okay, maybe for Jelle this is a good idea, for you this is a good idea. Like he has everything pre-planned so that especially on the competition weekends itself, we can just have the book, we can just have the itinerary for the day, and we're ready, nothing else to think about. So yeah, that is
and everyone will have their own ways to go about doing that, but in general you guys are preparing to compete, and I think that competitions can learn a lot by even listening to what you're talking about in terms of, when they choose to release information, to make things as easy as possible for athletes and coaches, especially if they're traveling to a place to compete, as opposed to maybe being within driving distance is a little easier, because ultimately, and especially a place like PICSIL Showdown where a bunch of the athletes, including yourself, are invited to compete there, competition organizers are hoping for great performances on the competition floor and competitive battles and big lifts and fast times, compelling storylines. And, there's this kind of balance that we've always had with this unknowable thing. Mm-hmm. And then, giving people enough information so that they can actually show up and compete at their best. And it might depend on what the goal is of your competition. But I think that for PICSIL Showdown, they're inviting you guys to be there. I did want to ask you about that. How did you find, did we streamed it last year? It was just on YouTube. Or on Instagram, I mean, did you watch it at all the previous year? Had somebody gone to compete there? Was it just the PICSIL guys who reached out to you? How'd you get involved with that one?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Like I knew it was last year, and Tony invited me last year as well, because Tony, the owner of PICSIL, like he had I don't know how many, but he had a couple of invites that he could send both the males and the females. So last year he sent them out. This year he sent them out. But last year, I don't remember exactly why, but last year I couldn't compete. And this year I really wanted to come because it looked really nice. And it looked really nice from the athletes that I know that were competing there. And I think I also saw some of your live streams there passing by over the weekend. So it felt like a good competition that I wanted to do this year, and a fun competition, and also like something that I could sort of would be good for me to like for a little bit of extra competition experience, but also good for PICSIL to help make that event with some good athletes and some good sports.
One of the things that I like about that competition, and I know there are other competitions that have a similar model to this, is they do invite some athletes, and obviously as a brand who sponsors several notable athletes specifically around Europe, that kind of makes sense. They can bring them in. I saw you guys did something with the PICSIL Warehouse this year, and then well, do you want to talk about that? I can see you smiling.
Yeah, we were I think it was on the Thursday, so the day before that we were together in the hotel, because PICSIL had a hotel arranged for us, and we were together with the athletes for dinner. And Tony said, like, if you guys are open for it tomorrow, I'd really love to take you out and have like a tour of the PICSIL facility, like the warehouse and the facility, and we have a nice gym that you can do your session at. So it was like this really fun, spontaneous idea. And we were there with, I think, 5 or 6 athletes. And we had a nice training session. Like the PICSIL training facility is big, and it's really nice, and it's really well equipped. It was really a surprise going there. And then we had like a big tour of the facility. It was super nice. And then Jelle came up with this random idea. It was like, do you know those videos where they have people where they give them like 30 or 60 seconds in like a supermarket where they say, okay, whatever you can like carry or what you can put in your cart in 60 seconds, you can keep. He was like, how much fun would it be if we can do that here in the...
I love that idea. I didn't know that was Yella's idea. I figured it was something Tony had prepared for you guys, but he went with
it. He went with it, yeah. He was
Oh
like,
my
yes,
goodness.
that's amazing. We should definitely do that. We can have you all lined up 60 seconds, and then whatever you fit in the box in 60 seconds, we can determine who's the winner. Yeah, it was hilarious. I felt really bad for
Oh,
everyone who had to clean up stuff.
there was a winner.
There was a winner.
Okay, it was you.
Yeah.
I can as soon as that happens, and you're with a bunch of athletes who compete for a living, you know that there's going to be something on the line, some kind of contest. That's so cool.
Yeah, and this was just like a funny thing. But I think I also mentioned it in my post. Like, as you said, we're competitive athletes, so we know kind of how the competitions and everything run. So we already had like the boxes lined up to make sure that it was like equal and everyone had the same starting position, and we like had to touch the box before we were going. So we already made it into like a real competition kind of thing. But it was really fun. It was really like playful and just a silly little thing before the competition.
That's the only way to do it. You got to have fun with it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think something was off with the audio there. One sec. There we go. And Roman was there.
Yeah, he was also there. I think he was not meant to compete, but just there to do like a little bit of activation, just like Björkfinn was there as well.
Had you ever spent time with Roman before?
Not as much as now. Like I met him a couple of competitions ago and last year in Dubai as well. But like his English has definitely gotten a lot better, so we could actually talk some more. And he's a funny guy.
That's what I was gonna say,
Yeah.
because I think over the years he has improved at English, and also just depending on the situation or the comfortability. But when you get him in an environment where it's like just relaxed and he's comfortable, my perception is that he's hilarious, and I think he's gotten a lot better at English since the last time I hung out with him too.
Yeah, so much. And he's gotten like a little bit more confident in that. And now he's like starting with the jokes and everything. It's
Here we go. Someone's ironically fit. She thinks she could compete with you in competitive shopping and probably nothing else. Okay, so you guys have some fun. Did you eat? Are you a steak eater?
Not so much.
I'm never sure, but I will say last year I had the chance to go to northern Spain on 2 occasions, and for people who do love steak, you got to eat some like steak there. It's really, really good. So I just always kind of throw that out there since I have some friends in that area now, and they've taken me out for some nice steaks. But let's go to the competition. So you get there, everything's pretty good in the beforehand. You're having some fun. Last year they did a offsite event. It was on the streets of Pamplona, running with the bulls, lifting some stones. So obviously they weren't going to replicate the same event as last year, but they did do another offsite event. And for people who aren't aware, obviously we didn't get a chance to watch it. Can you walk us through what that event was and how that experience was, like getting to the first event?
Yeah, that was a really cool one as well. Like they kind of did some sneak peeks beforehand that it was going to be like some sort of off-site, off-road, like mixed with the animals. And I wasn't really sure what to think of that. But then the day before they briefed us that it was going to be a run, bike and run event through a zoo, actually.
Which I saw that, and I was thinking to myself, I don't know how this is going to work. They obviously must have some kind of a deal with the zoo, and maybe were there people at the zoo besides you guys?
Well, that's what I was thinking as well. I was like, okay, but then is there going to be like all sorts of making sure that no people are in the way? But there was no people because I think the zoo was also like closed now during the winter. And it was a little bit sad because most of the animals were in their indoor like facilities as well. So I think some people saw a couple of zebras and there were some donkeys and I think some bulls, but not too many other animals. And I mean, we were just a bit too laser focused anyway to really look at the animals. But we had a 1600-meter run to then a 11-kilometer mountain bike ride, and then a 1600-meter run back, but then with a weight vest. But like especially the mountain bike ride, that was really cool.
And it was pretty cold that morning from what I could see. People were bundled up.
Yeah, it was really cold. I definitely had like double trousers, like a sweater and an extra jacket, and definitely gloves because it was really cold. People were wearing like hats and stuff. Yeah, it was cold.
And that's always tough to know how to plan for, because obviously as you're going through the workout, you're getting hotter and hotter, your body temperature. So like double trousers may feel like a necessity before the workout, but at some point in the middle of it, you might be like, man, I wish I could take one of these off.
Yeah, so like I took the second one off for the workout because then it was okay. And also like I had this like this vest on, this raincoat kind of vest. And like I knew that I sort of needed it for the bike ride because especially if you're going like a little bit faster and the wind, it was really cold. So I wanted to keep it on for that. But then for the run, it was a bit annoying. But yeah, had to keep it on.
And let's see here. I can't remember how you did on that workout. Do you remember what you placed on it?
Yeah, second place. So that was a good start for the weekend.
And when would you consider, like, is that an expected finish for you on a long workout like that against this kind of field, or would you say you maybe overperformed or underperformed relative to your expectations on that one?
Like as much as because there was running in there as well, and running is not necessarily something that I would take a second place at. But then like there was like 2 times 1600 meters run and 11 kilometers of biking. And like obviously you can make up a lot more time if you do good on the bike. So this was definitely more a bike workout than a run workout. And it's a little bit difficult to sort of gauge how you're going to do in the field for a mountain bike workout because you don't know the terrain, and you don't know how everyone is with like actual physical bikes instead of the stationary ones. So I found this one a little bit hard to sort of think what I was going to place at. And then when we heard that it was two loops of 5.5K, and then at the start of the loop, we had like a 1 to 1.5K, like really steep incline, like averaging 15-18% or something.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
That's tough.
It was really tough. And like in this field and also in general, I'm a little bit taller and a little bit of a bigger athlete compared to like, especially most of the Spanish girls. So I was like, okay, if we're going to have like a 1 to 1.5K incline, steep incline on the bike, I might really be at a disadvantage there being a little bit taller and being a little bit heavier, where all like the itty bitty girls are going to just pass by me in a split second. But from round 1, like I could gain a little bit of momentum and could stick with like the front group. And I was like, okay, I know that I can do this pace and that I can do this thing for another round. So now it's time to see if they can do that too. And then I knew I could gain, like after the incline, there was quite a big part with like loose gravel and just a bit more hilly, and a little bit more technical. And I, like in the first round, I could already lose a couple of girls there. So then it was just like stick around and find out who else can hang on for the incline in round 2. And then I think we were like, there was one girl that was way ahead of us, and I didn't even know that she was still ahead of us, because I think she finished like over a minute ahead of me.
Yeah.
Or before me.
That was Andra Moistis.
Yeah.
She's a super impressive aerobic athlete that's, building up in the strength and the gymnastics capacity from Estonia. But I remember seeing her in Madrid a couple years ago have like maybe a top 3 placement on a long running event with the vest maybe. And she's pretty much done that every time since then.
Yeah, because like also with this event, like in the last round, I was together with 2 more girls that I could eventually lose on the more technical parts. So then I knew that I was ahead of everyone from that front group, but I was not 100% sure that there wasn't anyone in front of me anymore. But I didn't see her for like the whole way, so she was way ahead of me.
And I like the fact also that you mentioned the Spanish athletes. That's something that I was going to say earlier. I forgot about this competition. PICSIL invites, some athletes from around different countries, and they also have a qualifier where the best, up and coming athletes from Spain get a chance to compete against some of you who have been at semifinals, games, Rogues, Dubai's, whatever. And I think that's a really cool model to give kind of the up and comers in your country a floor to compete against some people who've maybe already achieved the things that those 20 to 26-year-old women are hoping to eventually achieve. Did you get to meet any of the Spanish athletes? Some of them only speak Spanish.
Yeah, so that's sometimes a little bit tough. And I think also, as you said, like it's not only fun for the athletes themselves, but also especially because Pamplona is like a pretty small city. So most of the spectators that were there were from the area, and they definitely wanted to have an opportunity to, see also the Spanish people and the local people compete. So I think that was definitely very valuable for both the athletes and the competition and the spectators. So I think that was really fun.
So first event, I mean, I'm glad Patrick was able to pull up some of that. These offsite events from the athlete perspective, how much value do you think that having a kind of unique offsite event adds to the athlete experience?
Oh, I think it adds a lot to the athlete experience. Like most of the events that you'll do are going to be in the arena. And as you said, with like the unknown and the unknowable, arena compared to offsite events is a little bit more known and a little bit more knowable and a little bit more predictable with like all of the implements and movements that you will have done before. And like obviously we have run before and we have biked before, but you never know with the whole like the very specific track that you're on or the very specific road that you're on. It's just it plays in like if you know the events like a week ahead, this thing just plays in a little bit more on, okay, how well are you able to adapt to a course that you haven't seen before, and kind of go along with the sudden turn of events, or if there is like an overtake, or if there is like a narrow bridge that you can only run with one person on, or how are you going to deal with if there's three persons ahead of you, or if you're alone, how are you going to run then? It's just, I don't know. It plays into a little bit more of your character, knowing that everything is still a little bit of a surprise. So I like those.
CJ, I would love to have spent my 20s traveling the world and doing fitness. Love these comps. CJ watches a ton of competitions. He definitely would have watched PICSIL if there was a stream for it. But this is cool. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time with this because that's a common response, I would say, from athletes, that if you can do an offsite event and do it well, especially if you can lean into some of the culture or the unique things of the city or country that you're doing it in, it adds to that, what CJ's even talking about, because you guys do have, so many things in your life. And sometimes, athletes go to these competitions, they compete in an arena for 2 days, and then pretty much all they've ever seen is hotel, arena, airport, and
it's
this is a way to
for the place that you're at.
Exactly, through competition to still get some exposure to the city or the area. So I thought this was another great kind of offsite event that PICSIL was able to do for you guys. I spoke to a couple other athletes who were there, and they said similarly that it was a great experience.
Yeah, it really was. Really enjoyed it.
And that paves the way or sets up going to the stadium. I think it was the same venue, same stadium that I was in last year, and I thought it was a pretty nice stadium also.
Yeah, for sure. And they set it up like the competition floor looked really nice. It was like a 20-lane one, so it's a pretty big one as well. I think people really underestimate what that takes, both for setting up but also for running it throughout the weekend. Like 20 lanes is a serious floor, and it takes a lot of equipment people, and it takes a lot of preparation to get everything done in time, make sure that everything is set up and prepared so that like changing in between heats doesn't take too much time. I think really people really underestimate that, but they had that down. They really like the organization really had it down. They really performed well that weekend. It was nice.
Yeah, they have a few very experienced kind of team leads on their staff, and probably some volunteers in each team that have done several of these. And they did run a very clean organization. 20 lanes also makes it difficult to broadcast, but
Yeah.
it's not impossible. Anyway, what was the first event in the arena that you guys did?
First event in the arena was Friday evening, and that was a workout with bar muscle ups and dumbbell thrusters with a 15-12-9-6-3.
And obviously coming off of the outdoor event, you're sitting in a good position, feeling good coming in for this one.
I mean, yeah, and as you said, like it's a very different type of workout, and like any workout's going to be different, obviously. So that's also something that we discussed thoroughly with Andre, and that's really how we are learning and want to approach each and every workout. Each and every workout's a new one. Whether you won or lost the previous one, it doesn't matter because this is a new workout. So really like starting everything 0-0, and we're just going to see what this brings. We've prepared, we know our strategy, let's execute the strategy. So yeah, that was the task here as well.
For the first event there, was it preceded prior to you guys arriving with kind of the more recognizable names in the middle, or did they do seating after that first event?
No, it was preceded. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure what they preceded it on, but it was seeded. Yeah.
And, Karin Frey was competing there. She is the defending champion. I think that probably coming into the weekend, most people would say she's the one to beat in the field. Did you feel that way at all going there?
I mean, we all know she's a force to be reckoned with, and she tends to really excel at like most European competitions. Like she's won the French, she's won Madrid, she's won Dubai, she's won the PICSIL. So like everyone knows that she's pretty well rounded, and she will not give up without a fight. So yeah, obviously she is someone to watch out for.
Well, Noortje, you're one of the few athletes that have maybe like some inside information. You and her were actually teammates at one point for a competition over in the UAE. Do you consider that kind of more of an advantage, that you know what type of athlete she is, that you have that personal connection with her, or it just doesn't matter with an athlete like her?
I mean, yes and no. Like there's definitely some things that you can take away, that you know that she will perform better, or maybe that I will have an edge over her. But in the end, like again, it's just maybe a little bit of a boring answer, but it's again always you against you. So I'll just, with anyone, not just Karin Frey, but I'll just try and stay in my own lane and use the competition in general as something that gives you a little bit of an extra push, but not something that I want to base my scores or want to base my strategy around. So yes, I take her into account, but just as much as I would take anyone.
The first event that you guys did that night on Friday inside the Coliseum, I think you finished fourth. Is that right?
I think so, yeah. Or I think so, yes, because I only
think
placed
you.
second and fourth the whole weekend.
I was looking at that. I was like, she placed either, and wasn't it like bouncing back and forth?
Yeah.
I think your event finishes, if these are in order, it was literally 2-4, 2-4, 2-4.
Yeah.
That's which is kind of crazy. So you finished fourth on there, and that was the end of day one, right?
Yep.
And walking off the floor after that event, after that day of competition, where was your mindset at?
I mean, the event went like pretty well. Obviously, I was happy with the first one. That was just a really good start of the day, good start of the weekend, both because it was a good placement, but also because it was just really fun. And then the second workout, I was happy with how I executed it, but I definitely know that there was like a lot from my bar muscle up capacity that I needed to fine tune there, because the endurance there was lacking, and I needed too much time for me by feel that I should feel like that, like I should need. But then to have like a fourth place on the leaderboard was, I mean, yeah, a good position to be in. So yeah, I was happy
And
after day one. It was a good start of the weekend.
are you a person who will look back at the end of the day and like to see the leaderboard, or would you rather just be like, okay, that's done. I think I did pretty well, and I'm going to focus on tomorrow?
Yeah, the latter. It's also part of the whole, like, this workout's done. We're going to analyze the workout. We're going to think of things that should have gone better. We're going to think of things that went really well. Then we close off that chapter, and a new one is right here, because that's also a little bit with like our whole day itinerary that we planned out. We have a time for the pre-workout, we have a workout, we have a post-workout evaluation, and then that one's done. And then we're already starting with the pre-workout for the next one. So it's both a little bit with how we like to approach it mentally, but also with literally how we built our day, that you don't really get the time or need to take the time to overanalyze things.
Did they reseed you guys after day one?
Yeah, they reseeded after every day.
And so even if you're not looking at the leaderboard, you can kind of know when you see the lane assignments where you're sitting.
I'll check the leaderboard. Like, I know,
Okay.
I'll know my placement and I'll know the point differences, but I won't be looking at the leaderboard for hours on end trying to overanalyze
That's
the whole
the
thing.
trick.
I'll look at it. I'm not afraid to look at it. That's not the point.
Yeah, I mean, whether you're battling for first or fifth or 10th or whatever, as the weekend goes on, any competition, then the field of athletes that you're actually competing against narrows. You're going to see maybe plus or minus 2 or 3 athletes relative to where you are, and understand that, okay, this is likely to be the group of women that I need to stay competitive with and beat. And if you can accept that without it having like an emotional response, then it can be valuable information to have. And sounds like you do that well.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a little bit easier if you're doing well on a competition weekend. Then it's a little bit easier to look at the scoreboard because it will show you nice things. But that's, yeah, I mean, that's the reality of it. But then, like, both sides of the coin are sort of like both when you're in a good position and both when you're in a bad position. I guess eventually, as you said, like, you need to be able to look at it from a more objective standpoint. Like, okay, this is now my placing. This is the technical and the numerical possibilities for the remainder of the weekend. It's just something that we need to take in account and be aware of. And then that's it. And we're going to prepare for the next workout, do the best that we can do. And whatever the result is, we'll see on the leaderboard. It's just a result of efforts, and it can be part of like a technical evaluation and a tactical evaluation, but not so much that it overtakes the whole physical of it.
Spoiler alert, she also got second and fourth on Saturday. But what Saturday morning, first event, is this what it was? The one with the progressing jump ropes?
Yeah.
So I can't remember you can tell us the workout. You probably know better than me.
Yeah, it was a descending ladder of deadlifts. It was 15, 12. It was a 3-rounder. Yeah, a 15, 12, 9 deadlift with a 15-meter handstand walk with pirouette, which was a 7.5 meter up with 1 pirouette and a 7.5 meter down with 1 pirouette. And then for round 1, it was 90 normal double unders. Round 2, it was 60 heavy double unders. And round 3, it was 30 single crossovers. And PICSIL had obviously their magnificent jump ropes. Did
you use 3 different jump ropes for those 3 things?
Yeah, they were provided for us, actually.
That's what I had assumed. And I have had a chance to use their jump ropes and see some of the different ones they make. And I thought this was, again, 20 athletes, you got deadlifting and handstand walking and 3 different jump ropes. So you need to make sure you have the floor space for it. But I thought this was a really good example of a workout that actually makes sense, coupled with kind of a product placement within a workout. Like they could feature their jump ropes while the workout was also a relevant workout, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And jump ropes and the belts, like it was a really smart workout for the brand, but also a good workout for the competition. So yeah.
From your perspective, was there a particular part of this workout that was kind of the make or break for the athletes?
The heavy jump rope for sure. The heavy double unders.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a big separator.
You know, years ago, Diane as a workout emerged with deadlifts and handstand push-ups, and then we've seen these versions of it over time. You know, deadlifts plus handstand walking, anything where you're getting inverted, it has this unique effect on the core, the posterior chain that maybe people wouldn't expect until they do it. Do you still experience that? I mean, I experienced it 11 years into this thing, but I'm not like you guys. Like,
no, yeah, it's definitely an interesting combination between the two. I think we also had a workout. It was semifinals 23, I think, in Amsterdam in the Rye. Where it also was handstand walk and deadlifts and run, I think.
Yes, this is the famous Uldis Upenieks workout where he biked through the traffic to get there and won the event. It was 2022 in Amsterdam.
Yeah, that one. So when this workout was released, I definitely had a little bit of flashback to that one. So I knew that, like, maybe from first sight, you're going to think like, okay, deadlifts and handstand walk. Yeah, sure. 2 different things until you try them together and you know that it's a bit more of a challenge than you might think firsthand. So I thought that one was going to be like challenging, and then throw in like a heavy rope. That was really what made it a little bit more difficult for most people, and that was definitely the bottleneck of the workout here.
Well, it looked like a cool one. I think it would have been a really fun one to watch. You know, you get to see the heavyweights, you get to see the body through space with the pirouettes, and then obviously you have some cardio with a little twist, or an aerobic movement with a little twist. And it was, again, I think a great start to the day for you.
Yeah, for sure. This one was one that I was also not expecting to do like a second place in. It went pretty well. Like I didn't really make any mistakes here. For instance, with the handstand walk, you had to be a little bit careful because the 7.5 meters had to be unbroken. So like if you miss one length, you're both going to lose the time that it took you to do the first failed one. Then you need some extra rest, and then you need to be really smart about when you're going to kick up again. So there was definitely like a tactical component there that you had to be maybe a little bit more careful than you otherwise would if you would have smaller handstand walk increments. So I thought like I can do handstand walk. I'm good at handstand walking, but I won't be the best in the field. So I thought that maybe that would set me back a little bit more. But yeah, I'm happy with how this went. And the double unders went pretty smoothly. And I think that saved me a lot of time, and that helped me get this second place.
These are the results for that event. And so, you know, Karin beats you, you take second there. And I think that, you know, I don't know if you think about this in the context of the weekend as it's ongoing, but having Laura take third and Sylvia, who is not having as good of a competition in Spanish, usually has take fourth, means that people like Andra, Elena, and Lena, Richter, are finishing a little bit lower. And it's kind of, this is where when I was watching, I was like, okay, this is kind of turning into a battle between Karin and Noor for the title here. It's almost like, did you recognize that was kind of like setting up for a showdown on the back half?
Yeah, I knew that like the remaining events that were coming, I knew that obviously Karin was going to be good with those, and not necessarily bad events for me either. And it was going to be like, this is what you say where sort of the leaderboard playtime can come in. Like, you know, obviously you need to place well, but it's also important how the people around you on the leaderboard place on workouts. And how their points are going to be awarded. So as you said, for me, it was like helping or giving me a little bit more breathing room that the people that were right behind me on the leaderboard placed a little lower on this one. So yeah.
And did this set up for the weightlifting on Saturday night?
What do you mean set up?
Was that the Saturday night event?
Yeah, that was the Saturday night event. Yes. Yeah.
They did similar last year. It was actually a two-parter last year. They did Isabel and then a heavy snatch.
Yeah.
Which was pretty wild. This was a snatch complex, basically snatching an overhead squat complex. And I saw some people in the community being a little bit critical of this, saying it was too much. This lift was too much. Did you guys feel that way at all?
It was a long complex. It was one squat snatch from the floor, then one overhead squat, then 2 hang squat snatches, and 2 overhead squats.
Which, I mean, fair play, program it and we'll do it type of thing. But I think you were talking about it with the handstand walking. Like, you got to be pretty specific you had 6 minutes to do this, right?
Yep.
And no rules about the number of attempts that you had?
No rules about the number of attempts. Like, you could go up and down in the weight, and you could have 1 minute before the timer started, you could have some time to load your bar. So like from second 0 onwards, you could start lifting. And as long as you picked it up before the 6 minute timer mark, you could finish the lift after. So that definitely gave you like a good 6 minutes, or 6 whatever,
sure,
maybe even 7 if you take the long attempt at the end. But that definitely gave like a good lifting window. But yeah, it was like looking at the complex, it definitely was all about the 2 hang snatches. So that was a bit of a spectacle to watch as well. Yeah, what can I say? As you said, it's programmed, so you're gonna have to do it. It's just the task for the day.
What do you think most athletes did in terms of number of lifts in their 6 minute window?
I think from what I heard and what I saw, most people did 4 lifts.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so you can start at 0 and then basically at 2, 4, and 5:59. So yeah.
And did you do 4 lifts?
Yeah.
Did you hit them all?
No, I missed the last one. I missed the second hang snatch of the last complex. So that was...
Well, and you finished 4th. If you had hit that complex, did you know, or do you know where it would have ended up placing you on that specific event? I mean, you have 73 here.
75. So I would have been a shared 3rd with Lena.
That is ridiculous that she took 3rd place on this event, and now we also happen to know that she was pregnant doing it.
Yep, that was a pretty big surprise. After, like, we spent the whole weekend together, and when she announced it after, I was like, "How did you even manage to keep this a secret?" And she was like, "I don't know. I was so emotional."
Well,
yeah.
Knowing that now, it explains so much, because I know Lena very well. Spent a lot of time with her when we were in Miami, especially that last day. I spent some time with her at P60. It explains so much about like her and what she did that weekend, and how amazing, a person, an athlete she is, but also just like, for her to just continue to do this event.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, because at any point, like she said, she's emotional, a lot of things going through her head, but she's like, you know what? I made a promise to Tony. They've been a big supporter of me. PICSIL has. I'm going to go out there and she does crazy stuff like that. But it's just crazy.
To her, I can only imagine how this must feel like 3 months pregnant. Yeah, big props. She was so fun, and she was so nice the whole weekend as well. Like, she's both a really good athlete, but also a really nice person.
And so miss 1 lift, but it sounds like aside from that miss, the day went pretty good for you again.
Yeah, once again, as you said, it was a pretty good day. I surprised myself a little bit on the first workout, and then like this one as well. It's sort of funny because if you would have asked me beforehand if I would be happy with 73, I would have said yes. And then when you're on the floor and you miss 75 by this much, you're actually not happy with 73 anymore. So
anytime you miss a snatch, though, it's by this much. I mean, it's such as like the smallest thing can make a difference between hitting or not. I would bet that the atmosphere that night was really cool in that arena.
Yeah, for sure. And especially like this is also one that we knew Karin, for instance, would do really well at. And while I was finishing, or I think I just finished with my last complex. I'm not entirely sure, but I know I saw her do the 85, and it was cool. The whole crowd was really like so excited for her, and yeah, I mean 85. She's just freaking strong, man. That was cool.
And she's typically a very quiet, humble person. She doesn't look for the spotlight very often, but the same thing happened the previous year with the heavy snatch. You know, she understands that people love seeing heavy weights. She's very strong amongst the female field, and she will also, you know, find the right moment to do that, give the big smile for the crowd. And I can remember that from 2 years ago there. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's one of those things that you can watch it on a live stream, but experiencing it in person, whether you're an athlete on the floor or a spectator, it's just a little bit different.
Yeah, you know what I also like if you're a bit more of a tactical athlete, she knew that with 80 kilos, she would have been good. She wouldn't have had to lift anymore. Maybe she could have done 82 and been happy with that. But no, she knows she can do 85, so she'll do 85. Yeah. She doesn't play the leaderboard game, or she doesn't play the tactical game. She plays her game. And I think that's cool.
Yep. And so, you know, another good day, and more or less the story remains the same going into the final day. Like, you have an opportunity to win this thing. You're going to have to. Were you ahead of her going into the final day, or had she taken over the lead? I think it was very close.
Yeah, I think she just took over the lead with like 3 or 4 points or something. Yeah.
And waking up on Sunday, is the body feeling good? Are you feeling good about your chances and you know, the final day of competition?
Yeah, I was excited for the last day. Like, obviously there was a little bit soreness here and there, but actually on Sunday I was still feeling like relatively fresh for a competition day 3. So yeah, I was excited, and this was, to be honest, one that I was a little bit nervous about, because like there's nowhere to hide in this workout, and there's like no sort of handstand walk that you need to be a little bit careful for, or a rope climb that you need to be a little bit careful for. This is this is
a workout. This is a workout you could see any day, any gym, anywhere around the world.
Yep.
You're gonna row, burpees over your rower, slam ball, and a small volume of toes to bar in the middle. So you, like you said, this is, and it's in that time domain that hurts. Like,
yeah.
So it doesn't matter how good you are at fitness, how long you've been doing CrossFit. When you see a workout like this, actually, the longer you've been doing it, the more you know this is gonna hurt.
Yep. So I was feeling good, but definitely a little bit nervous for this one.
And Sunday starts just like Friday and Saturday. You take a second place. Was that, you know, a kind of routine second place for you, or was this like everyone was kind of in it? You weren't sure how it was going to go. Did you find an opportunity to pass a couple women late on this?
Yeah, this one was like with the row and with the burpees, like it was kind of a similar strategy of just like pick a good pace that is aggressive, but not something that you're going to lose your shit over. And then there's definitely a little bit more room to make up on the D-ball and on the toes to bar. So I knew that I wanted to keep a little bit more of an aggressive pace there. And beforehand, we discussed that like the toes to bar is going to be for sure in 2 sets. So the first set's going to be at least 25, and then kind of see how I feel. But like when I was on the bar and I was approaching like the 25-30 rep mark, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this unbroken. And that helped me catch up like so many girls. And that also helped me like get back to Karin Frey, because Karin was a little bit ahead of me. And then we got off from the toaster bar at the same time, and we got on the rower at the same time. So like I could almost make it back up there, but then she could, I think she came off the rower again, like 2 or 3 seconds ahead of me. So she had 1 or 2 burpees ahead of me. And yeah, that was just eventually a pace that I could not keep on the burpees and could not keep on the D-ball. But it was it was an exciting move to kind of catch back up to her after the total bar and make up a lot of ground on the toaster bar.
Damn, that sounds like it would have been a super fun event to stream and to commentate on, especially when you have like kind of the front runner goes out, you close in on her with an unbroken set of toes bar in the middle. I can see that, like imagine that in real time and how the crowd would react to it. And I mean, even I'm looking down the leaderboard, you see Alazne Aguiazabla, 10:58, Laura Mugnia, 10:59, Marina Chris Mariu. Did you meet Marina? She's super young. She's really talented.
No, I don't think I met her personally. Spanish.
But anyway,
nice.
Yeah, and these three all finished within 3 seconds of each other, and it's an 11-minute workout,
so
but like that's what it is. So
yeah,
that's a pretty fun and cool way to start the day, and I think it probably sets you up for a final where I would imagine, you can tell me if this is true or not, that you have kind of this freedom going into the final, like I'm pretty good here in second place. It's a fast workout and I just can go for it, because the only way I can beat her is to beat her and hope for the best. And it's not, I guess as long as I don't miss a legless rope climb, it's not long enough for probably too much else to happen. Was that kind of the mindset?
Yeah, I knew that if I wanted to win, I needed to win the workout, or I think I need to have at least one person in between us. And I knew that was going to be difficult, because she's strong in her legs and she's pretty good on the legless rope climb. So like this would need to be me on my A game and her making a mistake. But yeah, as you said, like the points were set in such a way that I could still be first, but I had a pretty secure second place. And I mean, I don't really remember what the gap was between me and third place, but I knew I wanted to go out with a good feeling on this one. But I also knew that I needed to be like a little bit careful for the legless rope climbs, because that can be something like they have fucked me up a little bit in some events before. And I wanted to be sure that I wasn't in a position where I'm almost going to be falling out of the rope. Right. So maybe in hindsight, I went a little bit too careful on that one. But yeah, it was a fun little sprint to finish the weekend off for sure.
And it was a sprint, but the times actually sort of spread themselves out a little more than people might expect. And I'm guessing at some point you realized no one was beating Karin on this workout.
No. She was.
That's crazy. That's a crazy time. 2:13.
Yeah, she was really fast. And like the first 20 front squats, everyone was like kind of similar. That's not too big of an obstacle for everyone, especially if it's just the first 20 reps in a workout. And then you could definitely see the first separation happening on the ropes, and the first big separation happening on the ropes. And especially for Karin, she didn't go touch and go, but she had very few seconds in between reps. So yeah, she could already pick up a big lead there. And then she was just strong and fast on the last 10 front squats. And that's also where like a second big separation happened, and where a lot of the girls that finished a little bit later, they definitely still struggled with the last 10 reps.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more than I was expecting.
Yeah, because you, Lena Richter and Elena Carratala had like a 30-second, 40-second buffer to the rest of the field.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I said,
I would have assumed that would come like 5 to 10 seconds on a rope climb where they just needed to take more time, but it actually was on the front squats and the leg endurance.
Yeah, a little bit both. As I said, like the first big separator was definitely the legless rope climbs, but for a lot of girls, it was also the last 10 squats. Yeah.
Patrick, you got to go? No? Okay. I wasn't sure. And so,
I'm balancing the two. I have to with her on, so I have so many questions for her.
Okay. Well, that's it. I mean, that was I wanted to walk through the competition because I thought it was a really cool competition. There were a lot of great athletes there, not many ways to watch it otherwise. We were following along, but I appreciate you taking us through that and even the little perspectives inside there. And obviously, at the end of the competition, you ended up in second place, ahead of several good athletes from a variety of different countries. Some people who've been at the games, like Elena as an individual, and Lena, who's been on the podium as a team, and some up and comers like we talked about with Andra. That girl Elena Guiazabla in Spain has been kind of coming up. So I'm guessing that you're feeling pretty good by the end of the day on Sunday.
Yeah, it was a good competition, both performance-wise, like on the leaderboard, but also for how we've been working on my fitness. So that was definitely just a good way to start the season and a good little insight on how we're doing, how it's going, and how we need to approach the next few weeks until the next qualifier is around.
I want to read this to you. This is something that somebody who was on site at the competition sent me today when they saw that you were going to be on the show. Okay. Talk about all the gears coming together and a smile during every WOD. You could tell she was in a happy place and in the zone.
That's nice.
Was that how you felt as well throughout this competition?
Yeah, I think most athletes will sort of know when like both performance is clicking, but also that you feel sort of in control of your performance and you feel in control of your strategy, not necessarily that the strategy is working out perfectly, but that you know and are okay with, okay, strategy A is not working. We know what strategy B is. We're right on it. We don't need to worry about little things. We don't need to fuss about some things that didn't go right, or maybe the judge did or didn't see something. It's just nice when you're in control of yourself for the weekend. And that's what the weekend felt like. So that's, a really powerful feeling. That's good.
And it's cool to hear you say that, and also to see that, somebody who's watching can recognize that in you. And it was,
sure.
When Patrick and I were talking about it, we're like, man, I wish I could be watching this. Both of the competition was compelling, but I also saw some athletes, yourself at the top of the list, probably, that I was like, man, I would really like I don't see you compete in person that often, right? You're pretty selective with when and where you do competitions. And then this seemed like you were having such a great performance that it would have been fun to watch it, but it is also fun to have you walk us through it. There are some people that are curious about the next time they'll be able to see you compete. Do you have any decisions about that, or do you know when or where that might be?
Yeah, as you said, I am generally quite selective with competitions that I do and places that I go to, and I would definitely want to be a little bit more out on the competition floor this year. So that is the plan. First up, I'm going to do the World Fitness Project qualifiers that are going to be in March. That would be, I think, like a really cool event to be part of. And that's something that I definitely want to make like a priority this year. So that's like the qualifiers are the first thing coming up. And then hopefully also the actual event. And if not WFP, then I'll be at the French Throwdown that weekend.
Right, those are the same weekends. So you're going to be targeting a live competition in May.
Yep. Yeah.
So that'll be for people who love to see you compete. One way or another, they're going to get to see you on a floor against good talent at either one of those competitions in May. Oh, beautiful. Have you thought past that, or is that kind of, we'll see what happens for the first part of the season and go from there?
So like the WFP, also the second event is one that it's definitely on my list. So that's going to be another qualifier, and then hopefully another competition in August. I
Just
also,
curious,
yeah.
have you competed in the US before?
Wadapalooza.
What year were you there?
2023.
And did you go anywhere else in the US besides Miami?
Not for competition, but I've been to New York and Washington and Philadelphia this summer.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
So I
hopefully,
go to the East Coast a little bit.
yeah. If you qualify for those events, you get either a Midwest or Western experience. It's a little different.
Yes, that would be nice.
Arizona would be nice to be indoors in August in Arizona. It's so brutal.
You should go to SoCal. Do I don't know. Do the tier SoCal if you're going to pick something in the US.
Yeah, that's one that's also definitely on my wish list for this year. I also kind of want to give Rogue a try and Dubai hopefully again this year. And then depending on how things go and if I do or do not qualify, there's going to be some other competition probably lined up. But I mean, yeah, I'm going to try and aim high this year.
No, that's amazing, and I think I love to hear that. It's always difficult to know, especially I have a hard time evaluating this for athletes. What is an appropriate amount of competitions to do in a year? And I don't think it's the same answer for every athlete, and I also don't think it's the same answer for every athlete year to year. So is that something that you and Andre talk about a lot, or do you kind of how do you come to those decisions?
Yeah, it's definitely that we talk about that throughout, like a couple of talks in the year, like how we're going to structure the year beforehand, and then during the year, is everything going to plan? How are we feeling? And do we want to change anything about the plan? But the plan initially is definitely based off of, okay, what is the main goal? And that goal is now definitely, okay, I want to be one of the main athletes in Europe. And I definitely also want to make my, get my foot in the door on the international, the worldwide level. So what does that mean? What competitions do we need to be at to make that goal reality? And if there's like some big moments throughout the year that you need to be fit for like, as it was the semifinals to make it to the games, or now that it will be with the World Fitness Project, if you know that there's like a lot of work to be done in order to have like a good shot at those competitions, there is some, I mean, I don't want to call it sacrifices, but I guess some sacrifices that you have to make for other types of competitions, because competitions in general can take some valuable training time away. So it's like, it's a little bit of the balance of, you want to compete and you want to go out there and have fun on the competition floor, because in the end, that is what you're doing the performance sport for. But then how much, like, there is a little bit of a balance between how much you want to do that and how much it will potentially take away from like the big goal of why you're in this for. So yeah, that balance is how we decide what competition is worth it or not.
PC, what do you got for?
Thanks, Lynn. That's nice.
You took all my questions. No, I mean, no. I'm just watching you evolve from the first time we met. I mean, I remember specifically watching you and Linda, two country women at Lowlands, because I always root for like the local athletes, and obviously you and Lena had such a huge pop whenever you came out on the floor, and and then when I saw you in Dubai, and the amount of like how serious you were taking Dubai, and then knowing that you're doing a competition the following weekend with Lazar, Luca, and Karin, and then seeing you in the semifinals since then, you just seem like you're having so much fun now. And I don't know if I think we've talked about there's been changes in your life. I know that you work full time. How you find the time to train and do all this stuff. You're doing this balancing act that a lot of athletes are doing, and especially, and now you have someone like Andre who's helping you map your season. I don't know if I really have a question. I think maybe I was just complimenting you on all of that stuff. But have you noticed?
I was excited for the question. I was like, oh, this is good.
Well, I was good. I think I came up with a question. I mean, has there been one single thing over the last year that has changed your way of thinking, training, who you've become, where you're coming off your best performance as an individual athlete? Has there been one single thing that you can attribute that to?
I mean, like action reaction, or like cause, or what's again, cause and result?
Cause and effect.
Cause and effect. Yeah, whatever. Like that's always a little bit hard to exactly pinpoint down to one thing, I guess. But I think for me, like I started working with Andre during this summer, so during last summer. So it's been a little over half a year now that we fully started working together, because before that I had another coach that was doing my programming. And Andre was like, since we met, he's been on the side helping me do a little bit of the mental and tactical and technical preparations, especially for the events. And that has been something that already helped me so much. And to have to kind of pick at his brain a little of how he approaches events mentally and physically, and to live through his way of preparing for those events, and having the opportunity to be over at his place a little bit more, and training with, for instance, Jelle and with the other No Shortcuts athletes. I think if you're asking for something that really, like something specific that really helped me, like I'm generally training alone. And like you'll have some scores, or sometimes people jump in on your workouts, but generally if you're training alone, like it has its pros, it has its cons. But I've definitely found like a big pro in the training camps that we had at No Shortcuts, to like be around the other athletes and really live with them and really train with them and really be pushed by them. That's been something that's been really valuable last year. And with Andre, I think compared to Yuri, my previous coach, we've also like adopted a bit of a different training style than I was used to, and a bit of a different programming style. I started training a little bit more, 1 or 2 sessions, or 1 to 3 sessions more per week. And where Andre has a little bit more of a consistent programming style throughout the year, where my previous coach would have a bit more of a like a phased one, a little bit more on and off season type programming. This new programming, I think it has helped me increase my fitness, which is like a very broad term and a very general term, but it has increased my CrossFit fitness and my workout fitness, and my capacity, maybe is a bit of a better word. It's something that if I look back on previous performances, sometimes my like the pure capacity workouts, and like for instance the workout that we had with the row toes to bar burpee slam ball, like that's pretty much a capacity workout, and that is something that I would not place as high in before. So to see my performances on the leaderboard grow there is like at least an indicator. It's not going to be a proof of anything, but at least an indicator that that's really improving. So that's valuable to see that there's some actual output to the work that we've been putting in. So yeah, I think like having the camps, having Andre fully on board for like the programming and putting everything together, that made everything come together. I think that's really what connected some of the loose ends that I've had over the past couple of years.
A word you kept on using resonates with me a lot, and you don't hear other athletes use it, is you say tactical and tactics. I'm a military person. when you use those words, the meaning of those words is like, it's almost like you're playing a game, whether it be you're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. And you've even said it yourself, there are certain things that you're not the greatest at, but tactically you'll make adjustments that way you're still competing and finishing and cutting down the distance. And you saw that against someone like Karin Freyova and some of these other athletes who are known as specialists, whether it be Lena or Lena. But I mean, that word tactical, when you say it, just like, I don't know, maybe it's the military person. It gives me that warm and fuzzy, like, I've never really thought of CrossFit or any type of fitness competition on a tactical level, but like in the military, that's all we talk about, tactics. So, is that something you picked up from Andre as well? Because obviously he's known as someone that's very mental. He is very tactical. One of our, ironically, Fett says, he thinks of him as a Professor 2.0. I definitely see that correlation. I mean, is that something that you've noticed, like being more tactical now that you're with Andre?
Yeah, for sure. It's something that I already noticed in the way that he prepares the workouts, and he prepares like the initial workout strategy before we maybe test things or before we maybe see that we can do things a little bit differently. But it is both like assessing workout and then using the athlete's profile. Like, okay, I know this athlete is good at gymnastics or is not good at gymnastics. So there's going to be some personal limiters, but also for the workout as like a workout in itself. For instance, with the row, burpee, and the slam ball workout. Mm-hmm. Like for us, it was a 400-meter row. So if you're going to pick a certain row pace, and you're going to pick one that is maybe 2 seconds slower on a 400-meter, that 2 seconds slower on your 500-meter pace is going to cost you just a little bit, like literally just about 2 seconds, where a 2 second slower pace can cost or can save you a lot of energy. So if those 2 seconds are just a little bit slower on the row, but you can make up 2 seconds on 15 burpees pretty easily, and 2 seconds on whether or not you're going to take a toes-to bar break pretty easily. So it's about approaching the workout. Like maybe some people would go in a little bit more like without the tactical strategy, and they'll just say, okay, I'll just pick an aggressive row pace without realizing that going 2 seconds faster on the row is going to cost you a lot more on the burpees and on the D-ball and on the toes-to bar. So it's really about reading the workout properly and reading it objectively and in, as you said, like a tactical way. Okay, what is the rep scheme? Where is most of the time going to be spent in this workout? Where is most of the time going to be made up in this workout? Where do you have to be diligent with your rest times and have your rest times in your head beforehand? It's those little things and those tactical things that I have really learned a lot from him over the last year in how I look at workouts and how I strategize workouts for myself now. So yeah, that's it's a big thing.
I have a different question about strategy. Another friend of mine who saw you were coming on the podcast today, he said to me, you know what Nora is really good at? This music she picks on all her Instagram posts.
Yes, someone notices it.
And I was like, okay. I scroll through Instagram without sound on more often than not. So I went there today. But I also will be selective and like spend time picking the music for the post. So I'm a little hypocritical on that. I don't know. I just wanted to give you a chance to say anything about that, because he is a very, very astute music guy. Like he likes listening to a lot of different styles of music, and he thinks about that. And when he said that, I said, that's probably not like an empty comment. Is that something that you think about?
Yeah, I really like music. I listen to music a lot, and maybe a bit too, or well, I have some specific genres that I listen to a lot. It's definitely like rap, R&B, hip hop, those kinds of genres. And I don't know, I like to sort of mix them or match them to what I'm doing, maybe match the energy or match the actual words to what I'm doing. It's just a little bit of a fun gimmick almost that I like to pay a little bit of attention to. I don't want to go for like the popular sounds, but I think the music is also part of me conveying my my character through my posts.
Absolutely.
And my
That was cool, and I hope, I wonder if he'll listen to it or not. I'll probably just take a little clip of that and send it to him anyway. But and you might actually know who he is. I wonder. I'll have to ask you another time. But you also went to a totally different kind of music earlier this week. I saw some string. Would you say it was violins?
Yeah, it was a violin concert.
How did you end up at that?
Like I wanted to be with my boyfriend. I planned like just a nice day off. We had 1 weekend off where I didn't need to train, so I just wanted to do a little bit something like normal life things, a little bit something outside of the daily stimulation life almost. But yeah, then the classical music is something that I enjoy, and like we spoke about a little bit before, it's something that makes me, I don't know, calm, and I like to enjoy that type of music as well. And then especially if it's live, and there was like a beautiful solo violinist. It was it was really beautiful.
I just always notice that stuff when, you know, the very serious athletes, so much of what they're putting there is about their training, about their competitive season, about their daily habits, their nutrition, their sponsors, whatever. So when I see those little glimpses into the other stuff,
of personal life.
yeah, and I mean, I think I told you we would start by talking about you and then do competition. We did it the other way around, but I like asking some stuff like that so other people also can see these are not just robots. These are not just people that go out, compete, eat, train, sleep. Like, they have emotions, they have passions, and they like to do things as well. So I thought that was nice.
Yeah, it's sometimes fun to share a little bit of that side as well. Like sometimes the whole Instagram is very much about sharing what you're doing, like literally on a daily basis, your training, or as you said, like sponsors or your preparation for like the bigger events. And I think on the other side, people are also very interested in learning like what the character and who is the person behind the athlete. And it's maybe something that I don't show enough of, also because I kind of want to keep my private life a little bit more private. But yeah, sometimes to give like a little bit of sort of a glimpse in what I am doing and what I do like outside of the CrossFit world is also still very much me. So sometimes I like to share a little bit of that as well.
I mentioned that this guy, CJ, who watches the show a lot, he watches a lot of fitness. And he says, getting Lucy Campbell vibes. Would you ever take an interest in broadcasting or analysis? Maybe not right now, but at some point.
I mean, I like to talk, so maybe.
Well, we'll keep that in mind. I mean, I did think today that, you know, you articulate yourself really well. You have a fairly diverse vocabulary. You can speak very clearly about, you know, like what's happening in the process of a workout. So, and Patrick and I sometimes have opportunities to create something like that. So we'll keep it in mind.
We're all about complimenting her today.
Yeah, very much. Don't make me too much now.
I know. Well, then here, I'll bring it back to earth then. I'm
Oh God.
Yeah. So I want you to watch this, and I want you to tell me what are your thoughts when you see this? I don't know when the last time you saw this was, and also knowing what you know now, what would you say to this woman?
Oh God. Oh, this is really cute.
What year is this?
Oh my God.
2017.
That's ages ago. Yeah, I remember this is, I think, one of my like first qualifiers that I did 2017. So I was, I think, training like 2 or 3 times a week here.
Mhm.
Because from the summer of 2018, I started training a lot more seriously. So this was still very much hobby. Yeah, what I feel if I look at this, I think, oh, I'm so tiny. And this is, I don't even remember how much weight this is. But I remember that I was just so ecstatic, and like this was very me learning how to move weights in general and how to sort of be like this strong girly. But I remember that it felt really cool to start picking up heavier and heavier weights every week, every month. And I know that I was really excited that it made me feel strong and that this was something that I was still getting better at and consistently improving at. So it was just exciting to follow this route. And as you said, like,
yeah.
if there's something that I would sort of say to myself here, or what kind of now over the years looking back at this, I would have learned is like constantly when you're hitting maybe like 1RMs or doing certain times on certain workouts, in the moment you'll feel like, fuck, that was heavy. I don't even know how I can maybe even lift heavier than this because this was my max right now. And then now looking back at this video, I know at that time that was freaking heavy. Whereas now this would be my barbell cycling weight. So even though maybe you think at the time, like this is going to be the heaviest I'll ever lift or the fastest I'll ever be, or like whatever, couple of years later, if you stay consistent and if you keep working hard, you will move those thresholds and you will move those lines. It's motivating to see now.
How many more times should you let it run on replay?
Yeah. It's not even a pretty lift, so maybe take it off.
Patrick, any other surprises for her?
How far did you have to dive into my Instagram?
That's part of my job. I have to do stuff like that, you know.
Right.
And plus, I always think it's great, especially an athlete like yourself, who's, you know, it seems like you've appeared like you made a big jump this year. I think it's always important to kind of look back and see where you've come from, and then when you have that perspective, and I think that, you know, I once heard, I think it was Katrin, you know, in an interview with Katrin, it's like if Katrin said that, is if she could go back and tell herself, you know, her younger self when she started CrossFit, you know, what to do, she would tell her, it's like, hey, it's going to be hard, but you're going to be so proud of yourself at the end. And it's only the beginning when you think it's the end as well. And I think it's really cool to have that perspective. And you seem to have that as well, because, I mean, you know, I was 2017 and, you know, that was 8 years ago, but that seems like so long ago. You've changed so much since then. And I think it's always good to kind of look back, you know, can't go forward without sometimes looking back. And I don't know. Again, here we are complimenting and building you up again. I did want to kind of, you know, bring up something, and please, you don't have to talk about it if you want, but obviously there was a specter. There was kind of maybe like a spirit over the competition, you know, our good friend Lazar, and, you know, Josie, who was there, a part of the media team, who we all love, and we know how close their friendship, but he made a video that debuted there. Were you on the floor when that debuted, or did you see it before? And if so, you know, what feelings did you have? And how have you, especially you're one of the few people that have actually, you know, got to know him and Luca. How's the last year been, or not last year, I guess, we're going on 6 months now, Brian?
Yeah, a little over 6 months now. Yeah, Josie made the video during the weekend, and we were together in the hotel. So sometimes he would ask for some footage, or he mentioned that he was working on it, and that was going to be like a Lazar memorial after the snatch event on Saturday. So after that event, after the men were finished as well, because the men were lifting after the women, they asked us all to stay on the floor and to come on the floor to watch the video. yeah, it was really still, obviously, even if it's 5 or 6 or 7 whatever months later, it's still heartbreaking to think back of what happened. And it's a beautiful video. It's something that really captured him, and I think the opinion and the feelings that a lot of people had about him. And it was very emotional to watch it back. I was with Karin Frey on the floor, and yeah, like it was a moment that her and I also shared. Sorry.
I'm doing the same.
With Lazar and Luca, and even though I knew and I met him on a lot of events before that, sharing the experience in Dubai together after that week, and being with the brothers and being with Karin, it was such a good experience, and it was such a nice and fun and playful experience that we definitely discussed that we wouldn't be done doing teamwork together still. So it's yeah, it was just a bit of a difficult moment, obviously, watching that back. But it was done in a very beautiful way, and Josie spent a lot of time, and he definitely had a hard time making the video. So all the props to Josie for pulling through, because that cannot have been easy. He was a very close friend to Lazar, as many of you will know. So that must have been the hardest thing to put together. Yeah, I mean, I was in America when it happened. I was in where was I? I think I was in Philadelphia when it happened, and it was just so surreal, and like still the whole happening and how it was dealt with on the moment, and especially dealt with after, I think that left a very bitter aftertaste for so many athletes and so many friends and family members for him. And I think that's without like saying if anything was good or bad that any of the athletes did or did not pull out that weekend, or chose to compete, or will choose to compete in any of the competitions. I think that is very much not the discussion that we want to be having, or that we should have, because that in the end is not what matters. But yeah, there's going to be some dividing opinions on what happened, how they chose to deal with it, and how people will communicate about it now, or communicate their standpoints about it now. And that's heartbreaking to see as well, that it does divide up the community. But yeah, it's been a very weird and difficult couple of months in that. And like for me, I did know him a little bit closer maybe than a lot of the other athletes. But then if I look back on how, for instance, Luca has been holding up, and has been handling himself, and has been actually competing still, and being back in that very vulnerable and very difficult position of both managing like the general stress of a competition, and the general stress of being an athlete, and then having what his brother was for him and still is for him, to be such a mentally strong person, to be able to carry that out still, and the way that he does, and the way that he won Dubai, and the way that he was there, and he performed in Wannapalooza, and that he performed at the Belgrade Games, and yeah, it's really inspiring, and it also puts like my heart and feels for him a little bit at ease, knowing that he's not okay and he won't be okay, but that he's okay, and that he's able to live and continue his life and what he wants to do and what he wants to compete for, that he's okay and that he's managing.
Thank you for sharing that. Well, I mean, obviously beautifully said. And again, thanks for sharing with us. And no doubt that was a hard thing. I mean, obviously, it's emotional for a lot of people. I know, but appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of late there for you, and we know you got a lot of things, I'm sure, to do tonight to get ready for tomorrow.
Work day tomorrow, so
I think this was great. I think the PICSIL Showdown was a really great experience this year, and it happened 2 weekends ago, but we wanted to take some time to talk about it because we know those guys at PICSIL, and we I think couldn't have asked for a better person to walk us through that weekend, and then also to get to learn about you a little bit on the back end. So this was super enjoyable for me.
Yeah, thanks so much. And as you said, like the PICSIL Showdown, it was, in terms of like organization wise and in terms of events and really how they showed up for the whole people in the whole competition, it was a really good weekend. So like big props to the organizers, the volunteers. It was it was really a joy to be a part of.
Well, our goal next year is to be a part of it in some way. So, nice. I don't know if you've heard, but Brian's been kind of inferring like the broadcast, but so next year it's like we're going to start making the plans with Tony now. It's like, hey, we want to be there. We want to be a part of it. We want to tell the stories of the European athletes, specifically the athletes like yourself. Not many people worldwide know who you are, but they should, because you're just an amazing person and you're an amazing athlete and blah, 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 blah. Here we go again.
And amazing music. That was what Lynn resonated with.
Thanks, Lynn.
I go to her Instagram just to get like music suggestions. I mean, and plus,
really a compliment. Thank you.
I did not know this. I did not know this about you.
Yeah, I mean, no, she is. I mean, you look at her content, and we've talked about this, Noortje, about this. Like when, not many people know. I actually reached out to her and asked her, like, hey, can I be your manager? But at the same time, I told her, she's one of the few athletes that doesn't need a manager because she's so good at everything she does and she balances everything that she doesn't. But of course, I've always offered my help, and and I enjoy helping people like her out. But you go her Instagram channel is such a balance of who she is. Obviously, she keeps a lot of things private as well. But you can see her on Instagram based on the music, what she does, her sponsors, and everything like that. That she's genuine, and everything you see on there it's a reflection of who she is as a person. And it's great to see like your competition, you as an athlete, kind of moving up, catching up with everything else.
That's really nice. Thank you.
I don't know why. I'm just a nice person tonight.
You really
are. All right. Well, we will see you on the WFP leaderboard and maybe in Indianapolis. But this was awesome. Thank you for taking the time, and look forward to catching up sometime soon.
Thanks so much, guys.
Okay. Good night, Noor.
Bye.
That was awesome. That was super fun and nice. Like, I guess it's maybe different for me because I was in that venue there last year, but as she was describing those events, I could really imagine them, which was cool. Did you want to look at the men's results as long as we were like we did last time?
Them real quick. Yeah, like last week we talked about the men more than we talked about women because we had Riley on. Hold on a second. With Wadbuster, you have to verify you're a human, not a computer.
We alluded to it a little bit because we spoke about Jelle, that they had really similar trajectories on the weekend, and the overall competition had a very similar feel, where as it was evolving, it was kind of like a couple athletes battling for first and second and a couple battling for third and fourth. And in this case, Aniol was in the battle for the overall lead, which he was in last year as well. He actually lost that competition last year to Uldis on a really nuanced decision, like a microsecond of a step on a mat that was reviewed on several different video angles. And these are things that I was starting to learn at this time last year about the athletes. Like Aniol basically told me after that competition, I just can't ever win. Like I keep getting second. And he was like remembering all these competitions way before he ever made CrossFit Games, semifinals, anything like that. And he's obviously had a huge year, but that all kind of started at PICSIL last year, where he just came up short again. He didn't let it defeat him. He didn't let it get it down. And then he had semifinals, finally made the games. The games was what it was. He went to SoCal, got on the bigger, like got some of that notoriety internationally, and just continued to compete. Fit Fest, Wadapalooza, and then he comes back here. You got some serious athletes in this field. I mean, Jelle is no joke. Moritz is no joke. Well, this is coming back from injury, so you're not really sure exactly where he's at. But there's no guarantee Aniol was going to win this, and he wasn't really ever leading, and then he won at the very end.
Yeah, and he admitted, self-admittedly, it's been a crazy offseason for him. A lot more busy. I remember you talked.
I forgot about Down Under even. Like he was everywhere.
He was, and then on top of just, he looked great at Wadapalooza. I mean, I think right now he's finding that balance. He needed an off season like this where he can just like kind of push his limits and see what he can and cannot do. And and plus he's got a new coach, a new training camp. He is now, is he training think tank?
Like I don't know, man. I rely on you for that stuff.
Look at you. I'm sorry to bore you. I believe I can find out real quick. But talk about, while I'm looking this up, efforting this, can you talk about, I was really impressed by Uldis. When I talked to Uldis, he said he was about 85%, he's not completely healthy, but he's not that far off of third place. And
like I said, to end up only 12 points behind Moritz, who, is he also had a great year this year. Unfortunately, didn't get to compete in Dubai, which would have been fun to see him in. But I thought the results for Uldis kind of spoke for themselves. He'd lost a little bit on the strength side. He kind of knew that. I actually think that it was his worst finish. He took 11th on that. He had a top 5 on everything else. But I think he was actually happy. It reminded me of Lucy Campbell's strength performance at Wadapalooza, where it was her worst finish, but it was kind of her best finish, like her most proud finish, or where you saw some emotion. And I wonder if that would have been the case for him also. But basically, he got off to a good start on the weekend. He's great on the long distance stuff. He had I think a foot race with Jelle on that one. He ended up taking 2nd and 4th on the first day, so very similar to Noor, in fact. 5th and 11th on the middle day, 3rd and 3rd on the final day. So heavy deadlifts, maybe the jump rope, I'm not sure, and the snatch complex were the only 2 things that he finished differently than he really would have otherwise, it seems like. And I think that's kind of normal. Like guys that are as good as he is with multiple games appearances, they just have a baseline of fitness that they can get back into, within a couple of weeks of some serious training. So it was, and then I did just exchange a few messages with him throughout the weekend and towards the end of it. And he said he was kind of, maybe even a little ahead of where he thought he might be on some of the strength stuff. And he's going to use this as a positive step kind of towards getting back to where he wants to be.
Fraser McKenzie, who is the coach of I think he's a offshoot of Blueprint, and he's the main head coach for Amy Krinkle. That's his new coach right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, those top 4 guys are the guys you probably would expect there. And then Carlos is a guy that we saw, if you watch the Basque Chapelqueta competition, he won half the workouts at Basque Chapelqueta, another event in Spain that we covered. But he had a bad event finish on legless rope climb workout. He basically missed one legless rope climb and it cost him kind of the competition. He's on the smaller side, but he's like his engine is insane. And yeah, and this is a really good finish for him, obviously. Taking the top 5 in a field like this. I'm curious though, because Arnau Sabate probably would have finished 5th or 4th. He was doing awesome, but he got sick on the last day and couldn't compete. You're muted.
A name on there that we're very familiar with, kind of made his debut back in Europe, I guess, is Toby Buckland. Obviously he mainly competes where he lives at there in the UAE. Is expanding. This is a good test for him. What would you say about his performance? This is where you thought he would kind of finish at, and where does this kind of tie into where you see him this season?
I'm not sure entirely what Toby's plans are for this season. He's had some up and downs. He said that one workout went completely wrong, I guess. I'm not sure. Like, I think sometimes, I think about this with Luca. Like, Luca was so laser focused on Dubai that I think he had like inevitably a coming down after that. And for Luca, there's different things going on than for Toby. But I feel like Toby was in a similar situation where his year was building towards that competition in Dubai, the Dubai Fitness Championships, and he crushed that. I mean, it was an incredible performance. Got on the podium there, and I think got a lot of attention. And then he hasn't had the same or the expected success on the back end of that with these other 2 or 3 events that he's done since then that you might think that a podium athlete from Dubai would have. But that speaks to me to 2 things. And one is that it's not all about just the physical fitness, but it's also about like being able to leverage it at the right ways in these competitions and how much energy that takes. And also just the depth of the men's field. Like this guy that finished 6th, Pedro, I don't actually know who he is, but Joe Siastula told me prior to this competition, hey, watch out for this young guy, Pedro. And here he is finishing 6th and beating Toby. So I'm not too sure what to think about this from him. As much as I've seen him compete, I still feel like I'm learning about him as an athlete. And as I was mentioning to Noor, that sometimes there's a good number of competitions for an athlete to do in a year, and sometimes that changes year to year. Maybe Toby's still figuring that out, and maybe if he chooses, or if he can afford to choose 3 competitions and really dial in on them, then we'll see this elevated podium contending version of Toby Buckland. But maybe if he does 8 competitions this year, we won't see that every time he goes on the competition floor. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, I know Toby's one of those people. He has especially in the game season, he has the ability to compete in South of Africa, because they are taking Asia athletes there too. So specifically in the Middle East. So that is an option for him. I don't know. I mean, I've heard rumors that that possibly could be, especially with the news that Ruan Putkier is not going to be able to compete due to an injury. So, could open things up there in terms of if he does elect to do the game season and whatnot. But no, that's kind of the recap of PICSIL. Like you stated before, obviously some great names there. This is definitely an event that we both had circled. And it's hopefully something that we can be a part of in the future. I know we both talked to Tony about that. And I think just looking at the chat and talking to athletes is like, that's something they want. So hopefully that's something that becomes more common. It looked like it was great, well programmed, great venue, great athletes overall. All it's missing is a broadcast, and that's kind of what we're here, for. But yeah, anything final to say before we sign off?
Don't think so. That was a fun one. No teasing. What's coming up for Brian and PC comps and channel? Well, usually I spend all of December and January focusing on building out the next year, and because of the broadcast at Wadapalooza this year, I didn't do that because I was basically working every day on getting ready for that broadcast. So that's been the main focus of the last week and a half and probably the next week and a half, and we'll have a much better answer to that probably 2-3 weeks from now. In the meantime, I am doing some work for the WFP, and we're getting ready for the first qualifier and the first touring event there, and we'll have some stuff on the media side with them that will be coming out over the next couple of weeks and months that I think should be pretty cool. I hope it should be pretty cool. It's a strong team that they've assembled and given us a lot of opportunity to hopefully tell some great stories. So working on some of that, and then also trying to figure out how our traveling and competition season will integrate with it. But as far as travel, I don't have any travel currently planned in the immediate future. There's also just like last year, there were some competitions happening during the Open, and this year there doesn't seem to be. I don't have any competitions on the calendar until Pensacola Beach Brawl on March 22nd. So not a lot of competitions going on right now.
Yeah. Well, is that something that you're going to be at Pensacola?
No, and I don't know. That's just like the next notable competition that I have. Where I gather all these competitions around the world, and that's at that end of March. So I don't know of any competitions happening. Sweden Throwdown is that weekend. It's the first competition of the Wadla group that they'll roll out. It's also the week of the first WFP Tour qualifier, and then there are competitions that start picking up on the calendar after that, and we may go to some of them, me or Patrick or both. Who knows?
Yeah. Not much going on with me. About 2.5 months left here in Germany. I think in terms of trips, I think I might go to Paris next weekend. Got 2.5 months left, so I'm trying to get as much European travel. I would love to stay in Europe as much as I can, but we'll see. I don't really have a say in that, so we'll see what happens. I might come back to the States and come back to Europe. Who knows? I'm kind of just trying to figure out. I'm just like it's weird. I feel like some of these athletes and even yourself just kind of like there's things on the calendar. It's just filling in the spots in between. So I'm just trying to figure that out. I definitely would love to be at the WFP qualifiers. I have a bunch of athletes that'll be competing in semifinal events. Of note, like someone like Sahara, who's competing at the Mayhem Classic. The Mayhem Classic was the first when I started at Morning Chocolate was literally the first event I went to. So that would have been cool to go to, but unfortunately I'll be too busy then. But it's a weird season where I think everyone's trying to figure it out. And then if you're like a lot of people, you're reading comments and you're just seeing all the stuff out there, and there's so much vitriol going on there. There's so much like picking a side, us versus them. I'm like, just relax, just enjoy it. You shouldn't judge anyone based on whether they're doing the Open or not. They really shouldn't. I mean, I haven't done the Open since probably 2020. It's not because I have something against CrossFit. It's just because I'm typically busy, or it just wasn't in my, something I just didn't want to do. But I would do the judges course because I was a judge at our gym, and that's how I contributed. This year, I'm not doing the judges course because I'm not near an affiliate. I'm not going to be in any position to be judging. So it would just basically be a donation to CrossFit. But I don't believe in a donation.
They didn't call you up for the online semifinal?
No, I did not get called up for that. I don't believe in donating for profit.
Are we still doing rankings for WFP? Yes, absolutely. I'm going to do some power rankings for WFP. I'm not going to lie. Super tough. Super tough to do these. Obviously, they have an incredible group of athletes. And I know I'm going to piss off probably like 18 of them when I put out the rankings. That's okay. I've also been taking a look at the online qualifier, the challengers that have been signing up for that. So we also have some lists of notable people, pretty international crew that has already registered for that. And I'm sure we'll, similarly to the Open, probably a lot of people will sign up in the last day or during the week of the competition. So we'll keep tabs on that. I want to I don't want to just do it for the fact to do it. So I'm I'm trying to write a little bit about the athletes and have some content surrounding it. But either next week or the week after, I'll do some WFP power rankings, which I think will be a super fun show to talk about. I'd like to have a guest or two come on that show to just give their perspective. So we'll see if we can do something fun around that. But it's, but the cool thing is that for the assigned athletes and also for the qualifier, I mean, it was nice. I didn't know we would necessarily get to, but to see Noor talk about that, that's a priority for her this year, and that she, she's wanting to make that and have a chance to do it. I'm still learning a little bit about how the whole process works, and they do have a YouTube channel, I think, yes, and there will be some stuff coming out on there to help explain in a little bit more focused detail about what the WFP is, who it's for, how to be involved with it on a variety of different levels. So that stuff is all in the works. Yes. Maybe the same show, maybe a different show. We'll see. Maybe we'll wait to see the week of, and we'll do a show middle of the week, because they have 1 week to do the events, or whatever the number of events are, or workouts. So that could be obviously a fun thing to do kind of midweek once we see the names on the leaderboard there.
I mean, I know we're not this type of show, but I don't know if other shows will be doing this. Probably, but I would really be interested to see what the programming is for those online qualifiers, and just see, I mean, a lot of people are. What
I'm more interested in is how they're administering an online qualifier, because that's been a point of frustration for a lot of athletes over the last 4 years of the quarterfinal. CrossFit now has a semifinal that's online, that's qualifying basically a third of the games field. And the WFP has 3 qualifiers this year that are more or less qualifying a third of their field, or at least for the first 2. And I'm waiting to see if an organization, CrossFit, WFP, or anyone else, can roll out a meaningful way to do an online qualifier that athletes at the highest level especially feel is a fair administration of the test, or of whatever they're testing for. Rogue, I think a lot of people feel like that's about as good as it can get. But man, they have been some super harsh penalties on there. And it's always this question of how thoroughly are they reviewing everyone on the leaderboard. If you're, there was 2 years ago that Aniol didn't extend a lunge facing away from himself on a workout that took up a lot of space, and they stopped his workout there, gave him no more reps the rest of the time period, and it cost him a spot at Rogue 2 seasons ago, where he could have potentially had that kind of international breakout earlier in his career. He rallied from that, used it as a motivation, to continue on to do all the stuff that he's done. But if they're going to be that critical about one person doing one rep that it just ends their workout, how many other people down the leaderboard did they do that for? Is it reasonable for them to do that for? And that's just one example. We've seen so many examples of online qualifiers failing that I think if the WFP comes up with something that's acceptable or celebrated or viewed as satisfactory, even whatever, then that would be a huge win for them. And maybe when you see, you saw Lisa Fuliano's comment, I'm sick of doing these online qualifiers.
Sure.
But if there's a way to do them that makes athletes feel better about the fact that it's actually rewarding the people who did the best on whatever the tasks were, then that might change some of their minds. It's got to be a smaller field of entrance, maybe put a significant registration fee on it. Well, it's $25. So it's not much different than the open. It's 1 week instead of 3 weeks. I'm assuming it's going to be 3 to 5 of workouts. I mean, I think anything beyond that's probably unnecessary. And, but that's the rate. I have had an idea of putting a higher barrier to entry for people who want to compete at pros on the open quarterfinals, semifinals, game season, just basically saying you can pay up front to be considered a pro throughout our competition season. Let's just say that it costs $800 to do all 4 events. If you make it to the games, you could pay $500 to immediately be entered into a pool of athletes at the start of the open. And then no matter how far you make it in the season, you don't have to pay any more. If you get cut for whatever reason, maybe you've spent extra, but either way, you can, you can kind of pay up front to be in a pool of athlete that gets more attention.
Well, I was on an hour longer than I wanted to be, but I got to get going. But I think we're just kind of end the show there. Obviously, there's a lot of topics to talk about. Shout out to Noortje for joining us. I'm glad we finally got her on. Just like I said, just really cool to have her on, get that perspective. I really like these like athlete perspective of competitions we're doing. We really hardly ever see that across the space. But yeah, with that being said, shout out to everyone that joined us in the chat. Shout out to HCRSB CBD for being our sponsor as always. And yep. And with that being said, everyone enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you next week. We'll have hopefully a really exciting show. And with that being said, be friendly, our friends.